Sir Salman Rushdie has spoken in chilling detail to the BBC about the knife attack which almost ended his life. The acclaimed author was stabbed 12 times on stage in New York 2 years ago. He said he thought he was dying, and the loss of sight in one of his eyes upsets him every day. He was speaking to the BBC's Alan Yentob in New York, ahead of the publication of his new memoir. We'll speak to Alan Yentob in a moment, but first, here's that interview.
Oh my God!
Today at 6, author Salman Rushdie has been stabbed.
More breaking news tonight after author Salman Rushdie was attacked at an event.
August 2022. One of the world's most famous authors is left fighting for his life.
It has shocked the entire world. Author Salman Rushdie attacked.
He was dressed in dark clothing and he had a black COVID mask. And he just came sprinting up the stairs.
In a major TV interview, he tells me what he remembers.
I actually thought he'd punched me very hard. I didn't realize there was a knife in his hand. And then I saw the blood and I realized there was a weapon. And then he just started, I think he was just slashing wildly at everything. So there was a very big slash here across my neck, as well as the stab wound here. And there were wounds down the middle of my torso, is 1, 2, 3, like that. And there are 2 on the side over here. And then there was the wound in my eye, which was quite deep. It looked terrible. I mean, it was very distended, swollen, and it's kind of hanging out of my face, sitting on my cheek like a soft-boiled egg, you know, and blind.
While this was happening, something extraordinary happened in that the audience jumped onto the stage and
saved my life. Talk about heroism, that's heroism. I was lying there on the ground, bleeding profusely, and I'm thinking, I want my house keys. And I think that was that survival instinct that was saying to me, you're going to live, live, live.
I just remember the sounds of the machines and the ventilator breathing for him. That's what I remember, and I thought, you know, at least he's come through this surgery. I thought, at least I'm not a widow, is what I thought.
Rushdie's life has been threatened before. In 1989, after the publication of the Satanic Verses, the Iranian supreme leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, issued a death threat, a fatwa, calling the book an insult to Islam.
I had come to think of that whole episode as being ancient history. As I say in the book somewhere, I felt like a time traveler. I felt like somebody coming out of the past to attack me in the present. And so one of the first things I thought when I saw him coming at me, I thought, oh, it's you, you know, so it's you.
The man accused of carrying out the attack is Hadi Matar from New Jersey. He pleaded not guilty to attempted murder.
He took very little trouble to inform himself about the man he was planning to kill. He'd said he'd read a couple of pages, he didn't say of what, and that he'd watched a couple of YouTube videos and decided that I was disingenuous.
disingenuous.
And therefore, right to kill. There's a sentence in the book where I say that language is a knife. You know, language is a way of cutting things open and revealing the truth. Calling this book Knife is not just a description of the attack against me. The book is the knife. The book is my knife. And it's my way of fighting back.
With me in the studio is the BBC's Alan Yentob. Thanks very much indeed for coming to talk to us. So it is an extraordinary, very moving interview, isn't it? And what's interesting is it's still very vivid, isn't it, for him, the attack itself and how he talks about it?
Oh yeah, and we have to remember that the fatwa was in 1989. As it happens, it was on Valentine's Day of all things. And he thought he was at risk. And of course, for the next 15 years, you could never see someone without security police. In fact, I was with him on the night of the fatwa when it came, and we had to hand him over to the police. So this is his courage is amazing, and it's both a horror story and a love story, as you can see with Eliza, his wife, has been there supporting him, lying by the side of his bed, throughout all this period. I mean, she's been amazing.
And you say you've known him for about 40 years. How would you describe his state of mind now? It's 2 years on from that attack. How is he?
Well, remember, this is, as you say, it's now about a year and a half or something. It was on August the 12th. I mean, of course, it was shattering, the experience, and devastating, and he's had to get through it. I mean, you've seen the vivid and sort of really horrid description of what happened to him. I mean, 12 knife attacks, slashed just about everywhere, and he's had to recover. And at first he thought he wasn't going to write again. He didn't know that he could write this book. But then this extraordinary revelation about this, calling the book Knife. The book Knife is the power of language, the ability to describe and tell a story about what's happening. It's also about freedom of speech, you know. He still stands up for that. He got an award from Penn. He was the president of Penn America just recently, in which an award for courage. And the thing he is very aware of is not just the support he's had from his wife, President Biden, Macron, everyone. And I think he understands that he wouldn't have survived without those people jumping on stage and supporting him, as did the man he was doing the discussion with, Henry Rees.
And so, in the midst of that kind of hideous attack, there's the kind of actually some courage and something that's good to celebrate. Tell us more about the book. You've got the book there. Tell us what it's like.
I think it's quite remarkable. I mean, one of the things in this book, which is sort of, you heard him saying there that actually the man had only read a couple of pages of his book and, you know, didn't know much about him. And he used the phrase disingenuous. He did it because he thought Salman was disingenuous. It sort of doesn't...
Bizarre, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. But the fact is that in this book, there's a sequence, an imaginary sequence, in which he imagines he's interviewing him. And I will be dealing that at a longer length in a later film coming up reasonably soon, in a few weeks' time. And he's trying to understand what was going through this man's mind. I mean, he's a man who is obviously preoccupied with YouTube. Salman, because this is a book which is about storytelling, about magic realism, about writing as well. And so it's a very exceptional novel, I think. Not novel, actually. What is it? It's both speculative and also factual.
And he still has to face his attacker in court. I mean, we saw some of almost the kind of disbelief about why this man could have attacked him on what seems quite flimsy grounds. How do you think that's going to go, that interaction between them in the court?
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, he's going to have to be in court, and he knows he will have to give evidence. I think he's waiting to hear what the man says rather than what he's going to say when he gets there. I mean, the idea that he says he wasn't guilty and he had no... When he actually, you know, used that knife 12 times on him, and if people hadn't jumped on stage, there's no way Salman would have survived this.
What about the element of freedom of speech? I mean, Salman Rushdie is in some ways a kind of a figure who's really had to pay in a big way for freedom of speech, hasn't he? So
he absolutely has, and he's not ready to give that up. And he believes, as many of us do, that actually in the last 30 years, you know, and more, since the fatwa, freedom of speech has become even more imperiled. You can see what's going on in the world at the moment. You can see many of these regimes will not allow freedom of speech. So this is more and more of a challenge, and he does not intend to give that up.
Is he optimistic about the future in spite of that?
Optimism that's a tough word in these times. Look at what you're reporting happening in Iran and elsewhere, and in Gaza and in Ukraine. No, I mean, I think he's determined to continue to fight for freedom of expression, to be able to see that these regimes understand what they're doing, and of course, this man has done this. And anyone could just jump up and do this, but Salman wants to lead an ordinary life. For 23 years, after he had security for a very long time, for 15 years, he lived a relatively normal life. And then he went to Chautauqua, and it was all over. And he had a premonition the night before that this might happen. He had a kind of vision of a gladiator with a spear, and he thought, this is what's going to happen to me, I'm not going to go, but he did.
Alan Yentop, thank you very much indeed. It's really nice to talk to you. Thank you for coming to talk to us about Salman Rushdie. Thank you.